Burlington, and welcome to another edition of the King Kong Trail. I'm your host, Amy Vandiver, and I have a very special guest who I just met about 5-10 minutes ago, Mr. Stephen Brayton. Welcome to the King Kong Trail.
Thanks for having me. This is great.
Yeah. So we have a lot to talk about because you've got a lot going on. Can you tell us a little bit about what brought you to town specifically today?
I am here for the Sterling Lord Festival. It's an annual thing, except for last year, and it's held at the Burlington Library. It hosts a wide variety of Iowa authors, mostly, and this year they decided to do something a little bit different. Instead of having us all 10 or 12 or 14 of us all together, they decided to split us up and do a month of Saturdays.
Okay.
So there'll be about 2 or 3 or 4 authors per Saturday at the library.
Okay. And so this was the first day.
Right.
Okay.
Right.
And so today's November 5th, and this will air on the 7th.
Nope.
The 7th.
6th. Today's the 6th.
Oh, today's the 6th.
Yes.
8th. Yeah, we're still stuck in yesterday. I was gone yesterday a lot.
Yep. I think they run each Saturday from about 10 to noon.
Okay. So 10 to noon down at the public library. And do you know of any of the other authors that are coming?
No, I don't. Dale Cuter from Cedar Rapids was there today.
Okay. Okay. So we had 2 people. Now, did he have a Burlington connection too, or just?
The only connection I could figure out when he was talking was this was his first visit to Burlington.
Oh, okay.
He lived in Cedar Rapids working in newspapers for a long time.
Gotcha. Okay. Well, we got a lot of things going around with our newspapers down here in Burlington. So, hey, but you do have connections to this area. You're not here currently, correct?
No, I live up in Carlisle, which is in the Des Moines area.
Okay. Okay.
But I used to live about 15 miles west of here in Danville.
Okay. And you actually went to school with one of our friends from Burlington by the Book at college, right?
College, yes. I met him at Southeastern, and then we just became friends, and we just kept in touch all these years, just for various things.
Okay. Well, it's kind of handy being an author and having a friend who sells the books. And
oh, yes.
It's like Kismet.
Yes, I've been down at his store a couple of times for author events, and was at one of the last farmers markets.
Okay.
Sitting outside.
I usually go to all of those, so I must have missed you at that one because I think we had some football things going on. This is we're new to football parenting, so don't know if I got it all right, but we had fun. Yeah. So okay. So you've been down a couple times, and you have family in the area still, or?
We grew up in. I grew up in Danville. We moved from the Quad Cities when I was just starting 5th grade, and Dad took a position at the bank, and Mom was city clerk for a long time.
Oh, okay.
So those who have been around a while know Judy Brayton is the city clerk of Danville for a couple decades, and then about 1990. Dad received a better offer down in Centerville, so that's where they moved. And about the same time, I moved I had moved back from my first real job out of college and moved up to Oskaloosa for a while.
Okay. Okay. So you had a lot of ties and a lot of friends still here in this area.
Oh yeah, I still have. I still come down about every year. It seems like for just a core of high school classmates who are still in the area. We just meet and talk and chat and talk about what we're going to do for the next reunion.
What's your next reunion coming up?
I believe it's in 24. We're still planning it.
Gotcha.
We threw out brainstorming ideas, but I don't think anything really was decided.
Yeah, I'm not from around here, and they're talking about reunion stuff, and everyone's like, let's do Vegas, let's do Vegas. I'm like, no, let's go back to Peoria. Let's go back to Peoria. It's so much easier for me, but yeah, it's kind of group rules on that one, so we'll see.
Yeah, just a core of us get together and we talk about it and invite everybody, and we usually get, I don't know, there were a little over 40 plus students in the class, and maybe a third show up. So we always hope for more, since more are in the area.
Right, right. Well, do you find that the more people from out of town come back than the people that are actually here in the area? Why is that?
I don't know. The people will come from Chicago. I had one come from Colorado, and people 5 miles, 2 miles away don't even bother.
Oh, it's too bad. That's too bad. Yeah. Well, maybe if you're out there, class of what?
84.
Class of 84 from Danville?
Mm-hmm.
Okay. Class of 84 from Danville. Get in touch with this guy. Get together. Be friends. It's all good. We'll push for that too.
There you go.
Okay. So we have in front of us some books, and you were down there at the Sterling Lord Festival, and I read on your thing that you started writing very young.
Yeah, I have always been an avid reader. I started out with the basics, Hardy Boys and Encyclopedia Browns and everything like that, and mysteries. And at some point I decided, I think I can write some of this stuff. Mm-hmm. So I started writing a thriller, and what I thought was the most powerful scene in the world was when the soldiers had discovered that the president had been assassinated, and I used I used the word damn for a curse word, for profanity. I thought that was, edgy and powerful. I was what,
How old
12, I guess. Probably, but and then I had created a fictional character, Detective Private Eye, or a cop actually in the Quad Cities, since that's where I had moved from. Mm-hmm. And Sam P. Peterson, he solved mysteries. I think I managed to finish one short story out of the whole thing.
How old were you when you did the short story for that one?
Probably around the same age, probably
Okay.
entering teens.
Okay.
Young teens, I think.
And you've just never stopped writing then?
No, I took when I graduated, when I went to college, I attended Southeastern Community College for 1 year, and then transferred over to Iowa Wesleyan, mm-hmm. and majored in communications. And part of a writing class, creative writing class, was we had to start a journal. Mm-hmm. And I started that, and it turned basically into a blog. I don't write the longhand version anymore. I just do a blog now. But after college, over in I took my first job in radio in Kewanee, Illinois.
Oh,
and
that's where Goods is, right?
I believe so, yeah.
Yeah, I just remember the commercials growing up.
The self-proclaimed hog capital of the world. So
That's a hog capital?
they say it is. That's
in Kewanee?
Mm-hmm. That it's the self-proclaimed. I don't know if it's true or not, but
furniture store capital.
But I met a guy who gave me a job for about a month, and we got to be friends. And he was into comic books, mm-hmm. and so I started writing a comic book. And then while I was over there, I started writing sort of a fantasy story based on my classmates. And it didn't take off because a lot of it I really didn't understand the craft of writing. Mm-hmm. And it sort of kind of fizzled for a while. Then when I moved to Oskaloosa, I was walking down the street one day, and up at the square they had 2 weeks free classes for Taekwondo, martial arts. Mm-hmm. And I thought, well, I've kind of been interested in that. Let's go check it out.
How old were you when you
25.
You started at 25. Okay.
So took the 2 weeks free classes and never looked back. Just kept on going, and have been about 30 years experience, 30 of that. So
and you're a black belt, right?
I earned my 6th degree black belt.
Oh, wow.
A couple of years ago.
Well, congratulations.
So I am entitled to go for the title of master. I have to fulfill a couple of requirements before that, and that will take a few years, but I'm working on it.
Very cool.
So about 4 years after that, the writing bug hit me, mm-hmm. and I decided to I thought, wow, let's do a private investigator and make it a martial artist also. Make the person a martial artist also, since I was learning martial arts. Well, I thought about resurrecting that Sam Peterson character. Mm-hmm. Well, after going to all of the tournaments and camps and business classes, I saw all these wonderful, beautiful women who were involved in the sport, and I thought, no, she's got to be a woman. So She is me, only a female. So 6 foot, blonde, blue eyes. I was at the time. But she's a whole lot better looking, whole lot better instructor, and a whole lot better martial artist than I ever could dream to be. So, and since I was close enough to Des Moines, I was driving a lot there. I just moved the setting from the Quad Cities to Des Moines.
Okay.
So that's where she has her office.
So Des Moines is mentioned, and landmarks from Des Moines would be found in here?
Yep.
Does she go shopping at Jordan Creek?
Let's see. I don't know if I've been over to Jordan Creek yet. I will in a future book.
Okay.
I have her in a parking lot in a future book over at Jordan Creek.
You should have her go eat at P.F. Chang's.
I think she takes down a gang member there.
Oh, very cool.
At least that's my outline of that.
Gotcha.
But I started, and actually the first title, and I wanted a little hook. Like Sue Grafton has got all the letters in the alphabet.
Right.
A is for alibi, B is for burglar, that type of thing. And I thought, what can I do to make a little hook? So I thought, well, the Greek alphabet sounds pretty good. So I wanted to reference each of the letters in a different way rather than say like a fraternity or a sorority.
Okay.
Try to find some different way to reference that or mention that in the books. So I started with Alpha, and I wrote about 40,000 words, and it took me several years to get it done, and then I didn't know what to do with it. And so I found a critique group up in Des Moines, Writers Critique Group, and went there, and about the second week of attending, I brought my new book, started reading, and realized I had written 40,000 words of crap.
Oh.
Because I hadn't learned the craft of writing. I hadn't learned all of I hadn't unpacked the toolbox of writing. So I didn't know what to do with it. But at that time, the second book, Beta, the idea started hitting me pretty hard. So I scrapped Alpha, jumped on Beta, and was really working hard to get it done. And that took me a few years, and finally found a publisher in 2009. And when that was published, I thought, well, let's resurrect Alpha and see what we can do with it. So I picked it up and scrapped most everything except the basic plot, added a couple subplots, and basically started from chapter 1, page 1, sentence 1, and rewrote the whole thing.
So since you were able to have the second part with Beta, when you rewrote Alpha, were you able to tie in some things that readers might have had a question about in Beta, like some backstories and things like that?
Yeah, that got to be a little tricky because I wanted to do it a little bit like Sue Grafton's Kinsey Milhone, which was have something every month or so. So the Alpha starts in October of X whatever year I use. Beta starts in November. So how do I go back and relate things in October and put that out second? So what I did was I did a then and now type of thing. So it starts out in present day December when she's talking with her boyfriend that she met in Beta. And she's relating this story that happened back in October.
Okay.
So that's how I get away with it.
Gotcha. So if you're reading it, you'd start at Alpha then, or you start at Beta then?
You can start on any book. I have 3 out in the series with 2 more coming. All of them mention the previous cases. So it's not necessary that you read them in order. It is good, however, if you do, because in both Alpha and Beta, there is one scene where the heroine, Mallory Peterson, speaks with a homicide detective and about the murder of one of her classmates. And then it's never mentioned again. And so in the third book, Delta, she takes care of that. I finished the arc on that.
Okay.
So those cases come back to haunt her.
So since you're writing one with, there's quite a few letters in the Greek alphabet. I actually took Greek for a little while. I remember some of it, not a lot, but So do you have all these different arcs, like the overall story arc, but do you have like a bunch of smaller arcs within to kind of spider web and tie them all together?
You bet. Like I said, Alpha and Beta have the arc of the classmates being murdered. So Delta takes care of that. It also in Delta, it begins another arc where she, as part of the bad guy's revenge, she is force addicted to heroin. So now she has to deal with addiction problems and addiction urges. So that takes place over the next 3 books, or the next 2 books, I should say. So Gamma is the 4th book coming out later this year, hopefully, and then Zeta is out about 2 or 3 months after that.
Okay.
I'm not going in alphabetical order because Gamma would have come before Delta, but it just works out that way for the plots and the titles. So by Zeta, she'll take care of that problem, the addiction problem. But also in that book, I introduce a new character that will be featured in future books.
Okay. So, you said in the next book in Zeta, she'll be able to take care of her addiction problems. Will that pop up coming back to haunt her in other books? Because with addictions, that can be a lifelong struggle for a lot of people, and I don't know,
Right. I wanted to do a couple of books with those problems featured, but by Zeta, she'll have reached her depth, I guess. She'll have fallen as far as she can go. She ends up injuring her boyfriend severely in a crazed rage, and she has to deal with that. After she goes to counseling, I'm thinking of just dropping that whole addiction storyline as a feature, because by then she'll have received help. She'll know how to take care of some of the symptoms and the urges. It still may be mentioned, but it's not going to be a major deal within the stories.
So it won't be the front line.
No.
It'll be maybe somewhere in the back if it's there.
Right.
Okay.
Right.
Well, I'm glad she's getting counseling in it because mental health is such a big issue, and drugs and things like that, and addictions. There's no shame in seeking help.
Sure.
So that's good that you're putting that in the book. Yeah. And it's also kind of nice to have a girl who can kick butt.
Yeah, the problem that I ran into, one of the problems that I ran into with who and what she is that she's 6 foot tall, which means most of the bad guys have to be taller. I can't have like a Tom Cruise 5'4", 5'5" person, and then have everybody else be bigger. So now I have to watch the height and weight of all of her opponents.
So do you have to do like story sketches and profiles on all of your characters coming in and keep track? Wow, that's a lot to keep track of. We started keeping track of Doug, myself, and a couple of family members, and just keeping track of our heights and stuff like that. And that's, I can't even keep track of that. So. But to do it for every character in the book,
a little bit. I have to be very aware of who I write about, and at least basic description and personality, and how they relate to each other.
Ooh, I got an idea. You can make Pokemon type cards with all your little characters and stuff like that, with your basic things, and that way when you're doing your plot lines, you can say, shuffle the deck and be like, this is this. And then you have all the.
That's part of that craft of writing is a list of character profiles. I mean, you can get as detailed as you want. I know one person who wrote like a 3-page profile on one of her characters, going back to a secret she had in junior high school. Well, it may not be mentioned in the book, but at least it's there if that happens to come up. I don't get too detailed. I don't get that detailed, but I do have details. And then if somebody asks me about, well, how about this personality quirk? And if I don't know the answer, then I have to go back and think about it.
Right. Okay. Well, we're going to take a moment to think about that, and we'll be back right after this. Welcome back, Burlington and surrounding Southeast Iowa, and the one dude in France who listens to us. Welcome back to the King Kong Trail. I'm Amy Vandiver, and I am here with author Stephen Brayton, and we are talking about Mallory. Okay. So, actually, we were talking about character profiles and things like that. Okay. So, what is the longest profile of someone you did for one of her characters in the book? Besides the main character.
I think it would have to be Darren.
Is that her boyfriend?
That is her office manager, secretary, receptionist. He runs the office, does all the computer work.
Oh, I'm an office manager.
So
they're important people.
Yep, they are. She was, after she graduated Iowa Wesleyan, like I did,
okay.
She had an idea. She wanted to become a martial arts instructor, run her own school, and become a private investigator. So she was trying to run two businesses at once. And she managed to get through about maybe a year or so of really stressful times of trying to get two businesses to operate. And she is sitting around the office one time, and she puts in like a help wanted ad in the paper. And this guy walks in, takes one look at the office, goes over and fixes the air conditioner within about 5 minutes, and tidies up everything, and then looks at her and goes, "I'm here, you need me." And it's Darren, and that's the guy's name. He doesn't have a last name. He does, but I never mention it. What I do mention is that it's so complicated that Mallory can't pronounce it. So I don't, if you ask me what his last name is, I couldn't tell you, because
Well, now I'm curious what his last name is.
I don't know, but that's kind of a running under, it's a running joke or a running underlying humor or something like that nobody can pronounce his name, let alone, spell it or anything like that. So it's just Darren.
I can relate to Darren because, one, I'm an office manager, and two, my maiden name, nobody could say it. It's a Filipino name, and nobody could say it right. They'd look at it and be like, what is this? What is this? Except for one time, I lost my ID. I was flying back from Hawaii. All my family lives in Hawaii. And I was flying back from Hawaii to visit Doug. I was coming back here to Burlington, which is another funny story. And I lost my ID, and I'm like, oh my goodness, because you cannot get on the flights there.
Oh, yeah.
My family dropped me off. I was there by myself, and I'm like, oh man, because in that ID was also all my family's phone numbers, because I don't see them a lot, and this is before everybody had a cell phone, so that's kind of dating it right there. Anyway, but I went there, and then somebody said my last name over the intercom. Would Amy Pataxel come to the... I'm like, how do they know that? And I'm like, that was the first time in my whole entire life that somebody who did not know me said my name right. I'm like, oh my goodness. So I can relate.
Yep.
Okay, so this Darren guy in this book, I feel him, man.
Yeah, he is. He does most of the computer work, and can get things done, and has things done before Mallory thinks they could be done, and has this uncanny ability to know where she is. When she calls on the phone, he'll say something like, "All right, stop speeding down the interstate." How do you know I'm on the interstate? It's just one of those things that he just has this uncanny ability to know where she is and how she's feeling, and he's her rock, her support system. Always with a little bit of a dry wit, humor, and so I developed him. I kind of kept him in the background for a while until Zeta, which is the 5th book, and I had finished the main story with Mallory moving from the Des Moines area back down to Burlington for a case.
She came down to Burlington?
She comes down to Burlington.
We are in a book, everybody.
Yep.
Yes.
So
Okay.
I use real places, Snake Alley, Lamont Limited, which is where I used to work over a summer. They made Wicker. And I mentioned Geode State Park.
I love Geode. It's so pretty out there.
A couple of other parks, Crapo Park. And we visit the hospital. And then we go out to Beaverdale for a scene. And so I wrote that main story and then realized I didn't have enough words. So I thought, well, what side story could I put in? What secondary story? So I thought, well, let's give Darren his own adventures. So he still is up in Des Moines solving his own cases. And so it gives a little bit more into his background, gets into his personality and his relationship with Mallory.
So does she know he's also solving cases?
Yes, he is also a licensed investigator and can do things when she's not or when she can't. In Gamma, one of the results of her adventures is that she loses her license for about 2 months. And so the business is open, but she's bored out of her mind because she can't do anything. So he keeps the business afloat
Gotcha.
by doing the cases.
Well, we're going to have to take a quick battery break because our battery's going to die. And we'll be right back.
Okay.
Welcome back again. Sorry for the tech difficulties. We're having fun and we're learning as we go. And we're learning as we go with Steve and Brayton.
Thanks.
Okay. So we're talking about, just getting inspiration and reading while you're writing. And
Sure. I listen to audiobooks and read all the time because that's where I get ideas. That's the typical question. Where do you get your ideas? Well, from everyday life. I hear stories. I hear anecdotes. I listen to stories and read books, and I think, ooh, that sounds like a good scene I could adapt. Or it will spur on another idea that I can take and run with. So I don't agree with the authors. I mean, if that's what you want to do, be shut out from the book world while you're writing a story. I mean, if that's the way it works for you, fine. But I get inspiration from everywhere.
that's kind of like being saying you want to be a very good chef, so you're not going to eat anything that anyone else makes.
Right.
Like, I like eating things other people make most of the time.
Sure.
Because that's where this is where you specialize and things like that, or working in a garden and saying, well, I'm never going to go shop for other people's plants because I'm going to grow. Like, no, I'm looking for all the plants.
Sure.
Yeah. So yeah, gathering information and inspiration, it's all around.
Yes.
So, and it's something that you're passionate about.
Yeah, and I like the ideas the stories that people tell me, because now I can adapt them and make them humorous. Mm-hmm. And you mentioned we talked about the actual locales in Des Moines and Burlington. Mm-hmm. I had a friend whose mother, grandmother, I think, or was it her mother, had a book and had read my books, and she'd always send her out. Go take a picture of this. Go take a picture of this. I want to see what this place looks like.
Oh.
So.
Well, that's cool.
I don't know how she managed to get the place under the 30th Street Bridge, because when I went there, it was in a train yard. Mm-hmm. And I was wanting to know about trains, and I just happened to I thought this might be a good place to have the final action-packed scene. And so I entered the train yard, and they had a perimeter road that ran along the outside fence line by some residential area and everything, and then ended under the East 30th Street Bridge, which is just southwest of the fairgrounds.
Is this in Des Moines?
In Des Moines, yeah.
Okay.
And I thought, oh, this would be a great place to have the bad guys and the good guys meet and fight it out. Come to find out later, I was trespassing. When I got a hold of some train yard official, he says, don't do that again, please. And never answer my questions after that, so I was really upset that he didn't answer the question. I went, okay, I didn't know that.
Did it have no trespassing, or?
I didn't see any trespassing signs.
Well, you're an innocent bystander then.
Plus, the fence line next to the railroad is half torn down anyway, so if you could step across into the rail yard, it's not like you're scaling a prison wall or anything like that.
Is it an active train yard right now? Oh,
yeah.
Well, maybe they just don't want people playing on the train tracks.
I think so, yeah.
You didn't throw any pennies on the train track and
no.
Make them all flat and get in trouble with the government for messing up currency or anything like that. We used to do that, put the pennies on the train tracks, and then someone said, that's illegal. I'm like, it's a penny.
It's a penny. I don't think the FBI is going to bust you. The Treasury Department is going to come down on you.
Yeah. I don't know. But then I was like, oh my goodness, I don't want to break the law when I was a kid.
Oh, everybody did that.
Okay, good. Then
In fact, they sell them at the fair, squashed pennies that you put on like a little necklace.
Yeah, or the kind that you pay 50 cents in to get a squashed penny.
Right.
With the little imprint.
Right.
I collect those stupid things. But, 51 cents for a souvenir.
Right.
That's small enough I can actually keep.
Sure.
Yeah. Oh, goodness. So besides being illegal and breaking into things and ruining currency, did they actually end up at that fight scene then?
Yes, that's
Okay.
where I have the climactic scene, and Mallory almost gets killed by a passing train,
Which is probably why it's illegal to be there.
Probably.
So during the technical break, we were talking a little bit about your publishing process too.
Mm-hmm.
Can you kind of walk us through? We have people in here that listen that are authors or want to be authors, and the process. There's so many different ways to process books now, but you kind of have an interesting road that you've taken with that.
Yeah, it was interesting. It has been interesting. Long time ago, there was the Big Five or the Big Six, and there still are. Mm-hmm. And everybody went through them, and they would be very selective and very selective. Let's keep it at that. Mm-hmm. On who they would take, and they would spend lots of money promoting their authors and sending them on tours. Well, then Amazon came out, and everybody thought, ooh, I can self-publish. So the explosion of self-publishing hit really hard. Well, with everything that goes this way, it became a buyer's beware. I have read some not very quality books. I've read some good ones that are self-published. I'm not putting down self-publishing. If that's the way you want to go, I'm all for it. Learn the business, make it a business, and make it a success. Spend the time and the money to do it, to be a self-published author, and you can do it. I think so many out there just throw it out there. They talk about 5,000 books a day are coming out.
Wow. And
most of them don't last and don't make it. And in fact, one book I read isn't even up anymore. It was so awful. I wrote him back and I said, I don't even know where to start telling you the mistakes on this. So I didn't want to do self-publishing. I wanted the traditional way. Well, then the indie market came up. You had anywhere from big publishers to small publishers. And I went, like I said, I think I mentioned in 2000, I started reading Alpha, and the idea for Beta came up, and so I finished it. About 2009, I found a publisher for Beta, and then I went with another publisher for the resurrection of Alpha. Small publishers, and I thought they both sound pretty good. I went with the other one. I went with the second one just because I wanted to try somebody else. Mm-hmm. And
to see the differences.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. Unfortunately, both, like I said, were very small publishers, had a solo owner, and each. And in 2014, both of them developed health problems, and so they closed. So I have all my rights back, and now I'm stuck with nothing. No books are out there. I don't know what to do anymore. So I have to start over again and start querying, submitting, following guidelines to the publishers and agents. And then I found another small publisher, a local one. A couple had started their own business, and explained they wanted me because we had been friends for a number of years. And I explained my concern that I said, I don't want to be with you and then 2 years later you just fall off the map and I have to start all over again.
Right.
And it's, who knows what's going to happen tomorrow. The world could blow up and we all could be gone. So you take your chances. Mm-hmm. So I went with them for, they republished Alpha and Beta. and then they didn't want Night Shadows, so I went with somebody else with that.
And Night Shadows is a totally different series.
Totally different series, yes.
Okay, that's the one up here.
Mm-hmm.
Right here, everybody.
And they took, last year I gave them Delta and Gamma.
Mm-hmm.
And they published Delta in October of last year, and then I've been waiting around for Gamma to come out. Meanwhile, I had another book ready to go, so I was submitting that to different places, and found Whitebird Publishing down in Austin, Texas, and they accepted it. And then, with some difficulties with Gamma, we had some issues there. I decided to take my rights back and go with Whitebird.
So you say take your rights back. Does that, I mean, what is there a big process for?
Not really. The contract allowed me to do that. The rights came back to me anyway after a year after signing the contract, and so I just politely said, I think I'm going to terminate the contract with you, and I'll go somewhere else.
Okay.
And so there wasn't any harsh words or anything like that. It was just
no chairs thrown through windows.
No, just some issues that we just had differences of opinion on things, and so I turned around and sent it down to Whitebird, and so Zeta was already with them. So now we're having to delay Zeta because it's the 5th in the series, and we need to get the 4th in the series out first, if that makes sense. If I haven't confused everybody. This whole Mallory Peterson series has been confusing from the beginning, with Beta, the second book, coming out first.
Mm-hmm. But once it's all out, so are you going to do one for every Greek letter? I'm
thinking about that.
Okay.
It kind of depends. I'm having difficulty relating. I mentioned relating the Greek the letters to something in the book. Mm-hmm. So Alpha. Yes, the bad guy was a part of an alpha named fraternity, but he was also alpha male, and that's so I referenced that. Beta came from the old videotape brand, the Beta videotapes. That
she could have a fish in there too. It's a Beta.
I didn't think about that.
I have a Beta named Pepper. She's cute.
I didn't think about that. You have a fish too? I saw the birds and the dogs and the cats. Oh my goodness.
We have fish and we have frogs. We had a pet spider. It died.
Oh goodness.
Poor Peter Parker.
Oh my gosh. So Beta is referenced on that, and Delta is related to one of the bad guys' names. Mm-hmm. It is also part of a side story where a bad guy, it was part of the Delta Force.
Ah.
So I did that. Gamma, I loved writing Gamma, and look for it. It'll be, like I said, it's out in a month or two.
Uh-huh.
I promise.
And it'll be available at?
Amazon. You can also look me up on Facebook, Stephen Brayton Author on Facebook. I'm stephenbrayton.wordpress.com is my blog, my weekly blog. Mm-hmm. So it has information and links to all my books. Mm-hmm. So Gamma, I use The Incredible Hulk, which Bruce Banner was infected by gamma rays. Mm-hmm. And then Gamma is also a gamma knife. There is a medical device called a gamma knife, and it is used to help cure brain tumors. Huh. So I put a side story in with that. And Mallory meets a trio of punk rockers called the Gamma Rays. And
that gamma ray, did that come back from because you said earlier that you were into the comic books and writing comic book stories, and did that kind of
a little bit, yeah.
Okay, so there's a lot of you in these books.
Yes. Oh, yeah. Yes. Mallory has all my likes and dislikes. That's why I turned down your offer of coffee, because I'm not a big coffee fan, and neither is Mallory.
Oh, she don't know what she was missing.
We both like Dr. Pepper, though.
I guess it would be easier to relate a main character for so many books to something that, your likes and dislikes and things like that, because you can really relate that way.
Sure. And then Zeta, I make up a Zeta Ruby. So it's all based around a stolen jewel.
Ah.
So, but later books are getting a little bit more difficult to find meaning for. The next book after Zeta, I have entitled Omega, which typically would be the last letter of the Greek alphabet, but it's not the last story. But I use it as an underworld term that one of the bad guys uses, the Omega Protocol, to eliminate an adversary. And it also...
that would be a good name for a protocol to eliminate, because that'd be the end.
Yes.
To end them.
And it also kind of shows a temporary end to a relationship. So, future stories are tentatively titled Tau and Theta. And I have another one outlined that I don't have a title yet because I can't find a reference to it. It's all outlined. I'm ready to write it. I just can't find a good Greek letter to put to it.
We should go get the Greek. We should go get our Greek. Epsilon. Yeah, Epsilon's a good one. Is what, Doug? We need to get you on a microphone. What'd you say? Is key? Yeah.
But I'm always looking up the Greek alphabet or the letter on Wikipedia, or try to find some obscure meaning to it that I can relate. So
Maybe my year and a half of Greek would come in handy right. Wait, 2 years. No, 1 year. How many? You had 2 years. I had 1 year. I had 1 year of Greek.
Well, I have a short story called Lambda, which relates to crime. Lambda, it's criminally related. I'm not sure quite how, but...
Is that in the Mallory one?
That's in the Mallory series, yeah.
Okay.
Omega, once again, I ran into a word count problem. And I don't know how to add extra side stories for filler, to fill it out. So I thought maybe I'll do a twofer. Maybe a short story and a longer story. So if it works out that way, we'll see. I'm writing Tau right now, and it looks like I'm going to have a word count problem also. So maybe when I get it done, I'll do a threefer. 3 books in one. How about that?
The Mallory trilogies.
There you go.
Well, trilogies is a big thing. We were talking about that with Star Wars and stuff like that.
Sure.
Maybe it's the prequels to the stories.
Well, I'm trying to keep them in order and moving through the year. The book I'm writing, let's see, I said Omega, Tau, Theta would be the 9th, and that takes place in October, a year after Alpha.
Okay. So each one takes place in a month. You have a month span for each book?
A month or two.
Okay.
Yeah, a month or two.
She's got a lot going on each month.
Alpha takes place in October. Beta is in November. Delta is the next February. Gamma's in April. Zeta's in June.
Okay. So just moving right along with
Moving
life
right
there.
along, yeah.
Did you pick out a year that this is taking place?
No.
Okay.
No, and I especially in Gamma, I have written, and in New Year Gone too. Part of the acknowledgments, the end of the acknowledgments, after I thank everybody, I say something along the lines of, this was written over a span of time, so some things in Des Moines have changed. Buildings aren't there, businesses aren't there. In Gamma, I go to the zoo where they meet, they pet Jake the tortoise, who was a charter member of the zoo 55 years ago. Well, he's dead now.
Oh,
So,
poor Jake.
yeah, so I say some things change, but I'm not going to wait till the last minute before it's published and change everything to keep it updated.
Oh, that would be crazy.
Oh, it'd be crazy. So I said, I'm going with it as I wrote it. Some things aren't here. If you find other discrepancies, that's the way they are. I hope it doesn't detract from any
it's a
enjoyment.
work of fiction anyway.
Sure.
So, I mean, there's got to be some creative, play in there
Sure.
anyway, flexibility.
Sure. But I don't try, especially with technology. Technology changes every day. I don't try to keep up with it. If there is new technology out there, I won't get into too much detail with it. I'll just use it.
Yeah, you don't have to say that, well, this processor does this and this processor does this.
That's been an issue because I'm writing a book now that goes back 20 years. And I had to talk to my dad, well, what kind of storage devices were used 20 years ago? Thumb drives were just coming out.
Big floppy disks.
Yeah.
The big ones.
And so I needed, they had something called I want to say Omega, but that's not the correct term for it. Well, you had the floppy disks, and then you had the smaller plastic disks. Well,
The hard ones?
The hard ones. And then there was something, magneto discs, that's what it was called, which was a little bit bigger disc. Then it was kind of in between.
I don't
And
remember those.
you actually plugged it into another device that you plugged into the computer to be able to run it. So.
And that was a stuff, man. That
Oh,
was
yeah.
playing Oregon Trail in school.
That's right.
Oh, well, we're going to take a quick break, and we'll be right back right after this. Welcome back, Burlington, surrounding area, people in Des Moines, because that's where he's from. This is Amy with King Kong Trail, and our special guest is Stephen Brayton. Okay, so we're talking storage in the old days of computers and floppy disks and crazy stuff like that.
It's all part of the research. You know, you do as much research as you can. And I am so thankful to everybody who has helped me out with all of my books. In fact, I just wrote a blog that I will post, I don't know when, but I always like to keep ahead, that I said everybody who helps me out gets either an acknowledgement or gets included in the book as a character.
Ooh.
So if you don't help me out, or you're rude, or you snub me,
Beware.
The beware. I think there's an old phrase out there that you sometimes see on T-shirts or coffee cups or something like that. If you make me mad, I'll kill you in a book.
I've never seen that.
You know, I'll make you a dead body in a book. So I've done that. I have run into people who have been kind of not nice to me. Well, they go in the book. Not as real people, but their characters go into the book.
Taylor Swift.
Yeah.
Yeah. I met a receptionist one time who I threw her out of her programmed Android ways by introducing myself as an author, and I needed to do some research. She had no clue what to do. She didn't know who to contact, didn't know it. She kind of flapped her hand and went, go look at the directory, employee directory over there. I went, she goes in the book.
It's like that. Do you ever watch The Office?
No.
Oh,
I never did. I'm sorry for those fans out there who are booing me now, but it was
That's
one of
okay.
those series I never got into.
You don't have to get into every series because you're reading books and stuff like that. There's a character though. His name's Ryan, and he comes back after being stupid and comes back on the show, and then everyone who says it messes with him, he's writing in a book.
Yes.
So when he's back on top, he's going to get him.
Yep. So I had a friend of a classmate who took me around. That she worked at the zoo at the time. She took me on a special tour, so that's how I got the zoo information. She went in the book as a nice character, and she gets a free book when it comes out. And I had I talked to for Beta. I talked to a business owner in an industrial part of the city, just north of downtown. And talked to her about her business, explained who I was, and I wanted to find out what the business was because I wanted to use that site as part of a scene. And she was real nice, so she went in the book as a really jovial, kind of a countrified rural woman, and she was really nice to Mallory when she walks in, and so it's things like that.
So how they treat you is how they're in the book.
I think so, yeah, because I get stories
This is
from
like
those.
your journal, then. This
Yeah.
is like your journal.
I get stories from that. So,
So
if
the
there are
person that told you you're trespassing, is he one of the guys that didn't make it in the
no, and I didn't
train
acknowledge
scene?
him either.
Okay. I mean, he wasn't necessarily being rude, was he?
No, no,
okay.
and
Just
I
being
understood why
business.
he told me that, and I'm not mad at him, but it was like, okay, but it's all done, and you still didn't answer my questions.
Oh, man. Well, it was nice of you not to kill him off in your book. Oh, my goodness. So your blog, you come out with that once a week?
Once a week
Okay.
on Tuesdays. I had it on Fridays, but then somebody told me Fridays are not good days for blogs.
What's that?
It's the weekend. People are not interested in being on the computer. They're interested in going out early weekends. So I moved it from Friday to Tuesdays. And when and my first publisher who published Beta and Night Shadows, that was one of the requirements that I had to fulfill, was to have a blog.
Really?
And that was one of the
So that
things.
was your homework for it anyway.
Right.
Were you already doing that before it was homework?
No, that was the first time I'd started it.
Okay. Well, did you find it a very good exercise?
Yes, because I went all over the map with that blog. And I thought, well, I'll do a writing craft blog. Well, there's gobs of them out there. And I thought, there can't be anything new to say. All you're going to try to do is say it in a different way. Well,
although with yours, I noticed, because I kind of peeked at your blog and stuff like that, that when you're talking about different authors and stuff like that, you rate them by belts.
oh yes, that's the book review blog. Yes.
Okay, so you have more. You have.
I have
a couple.
two blogs. Yeah.
Okay.
Brayton's book buzz.
That's the book review.
WordPress.com. Yeah, that's the book review. And then StephenBrayton.wordpress.com is the other blog where I talk about everyday things and then related to writing and or my books. And I decided to do that a couple of years ago because the whole blog was becoming just a mishmash of stuff, and it really wasn't going anywhere, and it wasn't focused. And I was having problems finding topics because I was all over the place. And so I revamped it and said everything gets related to either writing as part of the writing craft or my books. So I just find everyday topics that I run into. I get on there and do a little rant and then relate it to the books.
So your latest rant that I saw was trying to apply for jobs and how difficult technology could make actually getting a job.
Yes.
Yeah.
I miss the days of walking into the place and filling out a paper application. Now it's online applications, and they're so different and they're so complex. I shouldn't say they're so different. Well, they're so different from the papers. A lot of them are the same. A couple of days ago, I ran into some glitches where I couldn't go anywhere with it because the system wouldn't accept what I put in there, and I didn't know what to do.
That's got to be so frustrating.
Or they require information that is non-applicable. Well, you still have to put something in there, even if it doesn't pertain to me. So
they probably just find just a general thing to make for every position and then add. Yeah.
I think so.
Yeah. But there's things out all over the place, and then for people needing help here and help there, and but there are a lot of people that are really having a hard time finding their niche
right
in the workforce.
Well, and everything is online now. I don't know unless it's something small like a fast food place or a convenience store where there are still paper applications. I remember even years ago, I was when I still lived in Oskaloosa, I was applying to an institution, and I couldn't get their online system to work. I couldn't do it. Something was glitching. I drove the 35 miles up to them, spent an hour trying to find the HR office, and walked in, and I said, I can't do this. She says, you have to do it online. I said, here's my resume right here. She says, no, you have to do it online.
There should be a way.
I said, I'm right here. I couldn't believe it, but they wouldn't accept it, and I had to go back and find my password and try it again. And I thought, I'm not doing that.
Yeah. So with your blog and relating that to life now, so there's a blog that's supposed to come out after that blog you're talking about, saying how it relates to writing. So is that the one that's coming out?
Well, each week they do that. So what I've ended up doing or discovering is that when I think of a topic, like some of the difficulties I have filling out job applications, I will bring up that topic, and then the next week I may continue with that discussion, and then maybe the next week related to writing. So so
I had to wait till the
there's a series. I make a multi-part post, which is good because now I don't have to think up
Topics.
52 topics per year. I can think up 2 or 3, and they last 2 or 3
Gotcha.
weeks, which really helps.
Yeah. I started a blog and I'm not dedicated enough to it, and I'm sitting there thinking it's really hard. Well, one, finding the time because I'm hopping, man.
Well,
But,
a good
yeah.
blog is about 700 words,
Okay.
which is sometimes tough to make. And I think for a good blog, you have to have it be regular.
Yeah, words I don't have a problem with. I use words a lot. I talk a lot. They're just out there. It's just finding the time to go from just talking or thinking about to you actually going.
Right. Totally understand that.
I should just have one of those little things, this talk to type thing, and just walk around doing my dishes or laundry and be like,
There you
okay,
go.
now I'm going to talk of them.
There you go. The old
kids will look at-
dictaphone.
Yeah. The kids look at me like, what are you doing, Mom? Why are you talking to yourself? I'm like, actually, I do that already, so they're used to it.
Yeah, but like I said, I'm multi-post or multi-week posts.
That's a good idea.
Multi-parts, and I'm a year ahead. I have 52 posts ready to go. So I'm safe.
Okay, so you're good for a year.
Yes.
Yeah. So do you just keep a log of things, so you always have 52 out there, or do you just keep thinking of...
I just keep
adding?
thinking and just keep adding to the queue. I'm waiting for the books to be published because then I have a series of about 5 posts where I talk specifically about that book.
Okay. So when you talk about the books and stuff like that, is your blog post written here somewhere so people can kind of get to know you through that? Or is it like on the jacket or anything like that of your books?
No, I don't believe so.
Okay.
I don't think I put that on there unless, I don't know, I haven't looked for a long time. No, this wouldn't have been, this is an old book, this is an old copy.
Okay.
So
This is
that
the
would
newer
have-
one, right?
Yes.
Is this your newest one?
That's the latest one, yes.
Okay, here's your acknowledgments.
I don't think I have any information on that unless it's on the back cover. But
I didn't
I'm
see it on
not
the
sure.
back cover. Well, I don't see your blog. 'Cause that
Okay.
would be a good place to also advertise for your things on your own, I'm guessing.
See if the publisher can put that on the next one.
Hey, yeah, there you go. Second, yeah, it would be your second publishing of it, or printing.
Yes.
Second printing of it. Yeah. So when you do a book, do you have to put a lot of money into the publishing yourself, or do they do that and then after it sells, or is that just part of the different types of arrangements and contracts?
Right. There are self-publishing where you do it all yourself, you spend all the money, but you get all the royalties. You get all the money for it. And hopefully you can make up for all your expenses. There's something called hybrid where you will pay the publisher to develop a cover and publish your book. I've written it, but I don't have the facility or the means or the desire to publish it myself. I don't want to, so I'll pay somebody to do that for me. So then I still get all of the royalties, or I should get all the royalties. That's usually the way the hybrid works. You pay somebody, they do it all, or they will do like a cover and put it up on Amazon or wherever, and then you get the royalties. Then the traditional side is I send it in, I don't spend any money for them to read it, to consider accepting it, and that's a good advice for wannabe authors. If they're asking for money to read your manuscript, forget it, go somewhere else. That's not the way it's done. And they're just wanting your money.
Gotcha. So that's can get into the scammy part of
A little bit.
places.
Yep.
Okay. So beware, new
Yes.
authors.
I've also had them come back and want to do a hybrid. And I'm going, no, that's not what I'm not spending money with you. You do that. That's your job. That's your business. You've set yourself as a publisher. I want to go the traditional route, which is the publisher does everything and then we share royalties. And I like that. And now you still have to pay attention to contracts because some of the royalties are a little can be unfair to the writer. And there are companies out there who will take contracts and then negotiate a better contract with a bigger publisher. So there are companies out there to look at too.
Okay.
So, but
there
I
is-
do the
okay.
traditional way. I don't like the self or the hybrid.
Okay. So if anyone's making you pay to read your stuff, don't do it.
Right.
Okay.
Now that's publishers or agents. Editors are different because they're providing a service, so you're going to pay them
to make sure you spell things right.
right. But it's still buyer beware too. I've heard about $1,500 editors who send back crap and who don't fix everything. I have a wonderful professional editor that I go to, and she charges like a couple $100. Of course, she delays my manuscript. She has excuses of, well, a hurricane came through and I had to move. It's been a running joke because the next time I turned one into her, she says, yeah, we had another rainstorm come through. I had to get out of there. And I went, oh, come on.
Move to higher ground.
Oh, my gosh. And then, or what was it? Yeah, it was a hurricane was the first time. And then I think another storm or a power outage.
So I'm guessing she's on the eastern seaboard or something?
She was in Texas.
Texas.
So she was just north of Galveston when the hurricane came through a couple of years ago, and I didn't hear from her. I'm one of those that, hey, whenever you get it done, I'm fine. You know, I'm not going to. Yeah, I'm not going to bug you. Well, after a couple months of nothing, I don't. And you said it would be out by August. It's now October. What's the deal? And I write back and she says, oh, I'm so sorry. I had to go up to Wisconsin, live with my daughter. And I wrote back and I went, really? A little rainstorm and you're gonna leave town? Really? That's your excuse? I was joking. I was having fun with her, and she loved it. And so the next time around, she said, oh no. And she wrote to a friend. She texted to a friend. She says, I'm gonna have to tell Steve I deleted his manuscript again because of another storm. He's gonna get me.
She's gonna find herself in the book when she's editing.
So
that sounds like me.
I'm waiting for I'm waiting to. I have another story to send to her, and I'll say, you know, what was it going to be this time? You know, sinkholes.
Well, you know, after a lot of rain, the sinkholes could happen because it saturates the ground and because, you know, sinkholes.
Well, I'll try to get to her maybe in early spring when nothing's going on. Because last October, Texas, all of the, they had a big snowstorm come through and it took out the power and everything. And so I thought, oh my gosh, if I'd sent it down there, she still wouldn't get it done.
I was down in Texas. My stepmother's stepmom at the time, her family is from Cotulla, Texas, which is like nothing. It was like a little bitty town, and so they had. We were by her sister's house, and it was 0 degrees in Texas. It was so weird. And I'm like, oh, this feels nice because I was from Illinois, and 0 degrees in Illinois is a lot different than 0 degrees in Texas. Yes. And I'm out there in t-shirts, and they're like, why are you out there? You're so cold. I'm like, no, what are you talking about? And like a little drifting snow, and then I was like, oh, and there was a mad rush on milk and eggs and cheese and butter or whatever it was. I'm like, what in the world? It's just like, it's nothing. And it was gone the next day. It was like just like one of those little fluke things.
You get in southern Missouri and south, draw a line across that Mason-Dixon line maybe, and they get an inch of snow and they're closing things. They're closing schools, and the rest of us like, I'm driving 500 miles today.
Yeah, it's like that. Meanwhile, in the north or in the Midwest, with 5 feet of snow on top of the car, when you coming into work?
Yeah,
that's what we do. But in their defense, because I have friends that live down in Texas and stuff like that, in you guys' defense, we have snowplows. You don't.
Right.
We know how to drive. In it, you don't.
You don't. Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, I get it.
Sure.
Kind of. It's just kind of fun to be like, ah ha ha. When they're teasing us about winter and snow and stuff like that, and all my, there's like, oh, it's so nice and warm here. And like,
yes, I have an aunt down in south of New Orleans, and we always have to tell her to shut up when it's 30 below and 10 feet of snow on the ground. She's going, it's like 80 down here.
Yeah, my dad was in Chicago, and my uncle, his brother, is in California, and used to always call. And then my dad moved from Chicago to Florida. I said, why are you leaving? He goes, Hawaiians shouldn't have to shovel snow. I'm like,
there you go.
I'm shoveling snow. I'm part Hawaiian. I'm still here. I don't know. Anyway, I don't mind the snow. It's coming. It's going to be here. So
Can't do anything about it, like my mom says.
right. So I noticed that Mallory didn't have anything in December. Does she get any snowstorms in any of the future books in December or something like that?
Well, in Omega, she is thinking Darren has been kidnapped in this book.
Oh.
By a returning bad guy. And she...
Darn that bad guy?
Yes. And as she's playing his game, she is remembering previous episodes with Darren. And one of them is she gets caught in a barn chasing after some bad guys, and she gets trapped in a barn during a blizzard. And it's where they have their one and only romantic moment, brief romantic moment.
So there is a little romantic tension going on.
There
as well.
was, yes.
Gotcha. Darren. So I'm guessing she rescued him. Everything got better.
Everything was fine. Well, let me. Oh, in Omega, that's where a temporary end to a relationship comes in.
Oh, with
Darren.
With Darren?
Yes.
Oh, I thought you were going to kill off the other dude.
No, that's in a later book.
Oh, gotcha.
So there is
No spoiler alerts,
a temporary end to the relationship. So.
That's sad.
Yes. A
They were so good together.
Yes. And then in Tau, he comes back.
Okay.
So he's not gone long.
Good. Where did this fly come from?
I don't
sorry.
know.
You can keep him on your side. Okay. So we have your Alpha series. We have New Year Gone.
Mm-hmm.
What is that about?
New Year Gone, I wanted to write a totally different book.
Oh, let's talk about that right after this break.
You
We're
bet.
at 20 minutes already. We'll be right back. Welcome back, and we are going to talk about what is going on in the book New Year Gone.
New Year Gone, I wanted a different type of private detective, private investigator, something totally different from Mallory.
Mm-hmm.
So I went with a traditional drinker, smoker, world-weary
Gumshoe.
And it is set in present day, but he is decades out of his time. He is a technophobe. He has to spend 2-3 minutes to figure out how the gas pumps work. He has a rotary phone in his office. He drives a 1975 Plymouth. How much profanity can I use? Shit box.
I was trying to figure out a car that was named a bad word.
No, that's what he calls it.
Gotcha. Okay.
That it's just a junker car, bald tires, failing heater, and that's the way he is. And he drinks, and he's a smoker. And so I wanted somebody totally different from that, from Mallory. So I also had, you mentioned some of the authors that I love to read. One of them was Ross MacDonald, who wrote the Lou Archer series.
Okay.
And Lou Archer, if you are not into complex mysteries, these are not for you, because his spider-webbed mysteries will take you all over the place. But they are all connected. Somehow they all get connected. Every character, every scene is connected. And I thought, I want to do something like that. So I wrote out a bunch of characters, wrote out a bunch of scenes, and I said, how can I connect all these? And so Sebastian Habeck is the main character. He is about 42, 43 years old. His ex-wife is his landlord, secretary, and financial advisor.
So she's the one who has to still keep him on a tight string or something?
Yep.
Or?
It's a strange relationship there. And he is after so his ex-wife's niece has disappeared, and disappeared on New Year's Eve. And the mother has contacted Sebastian to go find her. And during the investigation, he runs into all kinds of characters, and that may or may not be tied into the husbands urban renewal project for Des Moines, for part of Des Moines.
Oh, okay.
And so it gets a little complex and
So is this more of a standalone, or do you think this is the start of another series?
I had thought about a series, and it will be a while before I write the next one, if I write the next one, because it's so complex. I want to keep the same complexity of plot. And this one was a hard run to write because I really had to dig deep and to get into it. He is also one of those who uses, whether we call it high-minded language. So every now and then I throw in some complicated words that send you scurrying for the dictionary.
Ah.
And in fact, when my dad got done reading it, he looked at me and went, would this guy really say this? And I went, that's the way he is. He's very learned. He's very intelligent. He is just, the world has passed him by so fast, he just can't keep up.
Ah, okay.
And so I use quotes at the beginning of each chapter. So there was a learning experience too, because as this was about to be published, the publisher came back and said, you need to get okays to use all these quotes. You need to go check your sources and get permission to use these quotes. If the quote was from a book from 1923, I believe it was, or earlier, then it's okay. Anything after that, I have to get permission for. And I thought, oh, wow, I didn't know that. Scramble around, go through every single quote, try to find the source, because I just looked on I just threw in like the theme of the chapter and just picked a quote out of the
quote generator.
Yeah. Goodreads has a list of quotes, topics of quotes. So I tracked down, I had 4 that were questionable, including the opening quote, which was the song. Okay, I got to back up. I got to tell the joke.
I like good jokes.
The first edit that came through for New Year Gone from Whitebird, the very first quote is the opening quote, which sets the tone and the theme for the whole book.
Okay.
And she said, this was where she said, you need to check your sources for all these quotes because I can't find this quote in the book of Genesis. And I looked at it.
Let me see what it is. I'm curious.
Well, it's a different quote.
Ah, okay.
So I'm moving up to that.
Oh, okay. Yep.
So I thought about it for a little bit and I said, I don't understand what she's asking. And then I realized, and I had to write back and I said, no. It's not from the book of Genesis. It's from the band Genesis. It's a song lyric.
Ah.
And I thought, oh my gosh, now I have to go get permission to use this. How do I track down Phil Collins? So I got on the internet, found Phil Collins Limited. It's a business, and contacted, still in London, and so I emailed and called a couple times, and I kept getting secretaries or accounting people that said they'd pass along the message. Well, I didn't get permission quick enough.
Did Phil Collins die in your book then?
No. I'll get him next time. No, but
you Phil Collins.
Yeah. No, I had to change quotes. I had to go find another quote to
Okay.
use that would be okay. After it was published, I received word that Phil said, sure, go ahead and use it.
Oh, so he doesn't die in your books then?
No, he doesn't die in the book.
That's
and
good.
actually, the quote was the song was written by one of the other band members, and he said it was okay, but it was too late. So that's another lesson for authors. If
Well,
you
you already
use
have
quotes,
it okay, so then maybe you could keep it for the next one.
I can do it for the
You
next
got
one,
the
yeah.
official okay.
Yep.
It might fit somewhere else.
So that's another lesson for authors. If you're using quotes, get permission early, because it's so difficult if you're scrambling around at the last minute. I had to change a few quotes in there because I didn't have permission to use them.
That's good to know. Well, and that goes along with, there's, just giving credit to where credit
Right.
is due for a lot of people,
Right.
So that's fair and honest, and that's, that's learning. That's part of the learning curve.
Right. And that's what I do. I quote for a couple of those that came from other books. I quote the book and the author, or I cite those.
Yeah. Yeah.
So, but that's the type of guy he is. He like I said, he's very learned, he's very intelligent, and so that's the type of language. But I still write. I tried to set the tone of Lou Archer and some of the noir 40s and 50s shadowy private eyes.
Gotcha. The kind of that you would see typically in the old school movies type of thing.
Right.
Yeah. With the dark office and the shades and yeah.
Yep. That's where that's the way I envision his.
Uh-huh.
The ceiling leaks. Like I
his
said,
wife's the landlord.
The
so
landlord.
She should fix it. So.
I know, and I don't understand why she hasn't yet.
Well, maybe it's because he's her ex-husband.
It could be.
Okay, so tell us about Night Shadows a little bit. Okay, so this series, which is your newest one?
The New Year Gone just came out in August.
Okay.
So it's available on Amazon, and you can look it up on my on the blogs.
Okay. And do you have them for sale at Burlington by the Book too?
Yes.
Okay.
I have
awesome.
copies of all my books down there. Go down and talk to Chris, and he'll show them to you. And because the last time I was down here was for the end of near the end of the farmers market, and he offered me a table to sit outside, and then I brought down all my books, copies of books, and gave him. So early Christmas present, folks.
There you go. Support local authors.
Yes.
Even if they live all the way in Des Moines.
Yes. So Night Shadows, that was an interesting story. So at the time I had been working a night shift at, I was still living in Des Moines, or still living in Oskaloosa, working a night shift at a motel. And one of the radio shows I used to listen to is Coast to Coast AM. It's a late night talk show, and they talk about a lot of science, a lot of metaphysics. They talk about a little politics here and there, but not talk show politics type things. Mostly what they talk about is conspiracy theories, Bigfoot, UFOs, aliens, monsters, that type of thing, ghosts.
Stuff to keep you up at midnight.
Right. Midnight to 4, I believe it was when it runs. And Art Bell used to host it, and George Norrie now does, with guest hosts on the weekends. So I used to just listen to ghost stories and things like that, and it was pretty cool. One of the programs they had talked about shadow creatures that people claim to see. They wake up in the middle of the night and they see this form at the foot of their bed, or hovering above them, or hovering out the window of a second-story house, and they just stand there. And
so is this a spooky book?
Yes.
Okay, it's a spooky book.
It's a spooky book.
Private
yes.
Eye and spooky book.
Right.
Okay, gotcha.
So my creative mind went, "Oh, that is so cool! What if those shadows started killing people?" And right then, the story just wrote itself. The scenes just laid themselves out. The characters came out, and it is a little akin to the X-Files.
That's what I was wondering.
Yes.
Okay.
So Harry Resnick, who is in some of the Mallory books, was his introduction.
So this ties into these books?
Character-wise, yes.
Is this how her boyfriend dies?
No. No, I try to keep the Night Shadows supernatural stuff separate from the real life stuff.
Okay.
The reality stuff. Harry Resnick he's the homicide detective. He shows up in Alpha and Delta and a couple others.
So was this kind of like one of those character sketches that just took on a life of its own?
Right.
And also with late night spooky stuff going on?
And he gets involved with a rash of serial killings that they can't figure out. That the bodies are just mutilated and they look like they've been boiled or something like that.
Ew.
And scratches and scrapes and things like that. Well, Lori Campisi is the FBI agent who is sort of like the Mulder. She got put into this department to investigate supernatural events. So she comes to Des Moines, hooks up with Harry Resnick, and they start investigating.
Do you really think that the FBI has a supernatural investigator?
I'll bet they have somebody out there looking at strange events. There has to be some. Well, the Air
How do you
Force.
get that job? How do you get that job?
I don't know.
Oh, on my resume. I listened to, I don't know. I mean, how do you get the job of being the actual person to go get spooky stuff?
I don't know. What they used to do there in the 50s and 60s, the Air Force did Project Blue Book, which looked into UFO sightings. That was an actual operation.
Well, see, I can kind of understand that because there might be something, hovering or whatever. Well, when Doug was a kid, there was like this ball of lightning that kind of hovered in their house and like exploded. So
you bet.
There's.
I've heard of orbs.
Yeah. So I don't know, but I can kind of see that because it's kind of lore and people have seen it and whatever. But for like all the other stuff, I'm like, how do you get that job? That's not a job I would want because nothing scares me, but everything startles me. Everything. That's a bad thing for people to know. But like, how do you get that?
I don't know. I have.
What kind of application do you fill out for that one?
I don't know. I mean, and I'm one of those that I've been asked this before. I have religious beliefs, but what about ghosts? Do you believe in ghosts? Do you believe in supernatural things? And I went, not really. I'm one of those. I have faith, in God, but I'm going to have to see everything else.
Gotcha.
I don't. I've heard many people. My mom and my aunt, my aunt does ghostwriting. I don't see what the difference is between her handwriting and the ghostwriting, but that's what.
What is ghostwriting?
She'll sit with a pen and paper, and then something will come into her, or someone will come in and she'll start writing in a different handwriting than her own.
Huh.
And
I've never heard of that.
It's a little bit, and she's been to, of course, New Orleans is a plethora, is a paradise for supernatural stuff. She lives about an hour south of New Orleans.
Okay.
A little town called Raceland.
What's it called?
Raceland.
Oh, Graceland. I thought you said
Raceland.
Wasteland.
No, Race,
as in cars.
Yes.
Fast.
Raceland, yes.
Gotcha. I thought you said wasteland. I'm like, wow, that's where I want to grow up and be in wasteland.
Oh,
that
no.
just sounds sad.
But,
okay, Raceland.
New
Okay,
Orleans is plethora, paradise for supernatural stuff. And she's been through theaters where the person that says, there's a little girl standing right next to you.
Gotcha.
Yeah.
So she probably likes this.
Oh, she loved that. I've had people say, "No, I have to read this with the lights on."
Yeah, that might be one of the books I skip of yours. I'm just giving you a heads up because, spooky stuff. I'm the one in the theater that throws the popcorn up in the air, screams really loud at the stupidest stuff. I know something's coming up. The movie, the sound, blah, 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 the lights dim. The girl says, oh, there's nothing in here to be afraid of. I just know that this is where something is going to jump out. Someone's going to get murdered, something. I know. And every single time, it doesn't matter if I know. I'm going to be the one that screams the loudest in the theater and looks like a super big dork. So, yeah, Night of the Living Dead. That's like super old, and I was just Doug and I have never seen it. They were showing it at the Capitol Theater on like around Halloween time. It was a fun time. Going down, free movie, blah blah blah. Sit down, and then I jump at the stupidest thing. I'm like, what in the world? That wasn't even the stupid scary part.
Look, Barbara, there's one now.
That's coming behind you. Yeah, he's kind of creepy. He deserved to die. That doesn't sound very nice. But luckily, my son rescued me because he was in football, something or other, and he needed to be picked up. So I'm like, oh, look at that. Paxton needs to be picked up. Football. Let's go. Oh, yeah, I'm a weenie. So, yeah, that one I'll probably skip, but I'm sure it's super good. And if you like that kind of stuff, I'm looking at you, Brett Royer, and I'm looking at other people who like spooky stuff. There you go.
Yep.
So Brett's one of our local authors who writes spooky stuff too.
Oh, okay,
so.
Great. Well, what I wanted to do with this book was get into a little personal history.
Okay.
With Lori Campisi. She's the FBI agent. So her quirk or strange thing is that she has amnesia before age 12. She doesn't know anything that happened to her as a kid because she woke up one day in El Paso, and doesn't remember anything that goes on that went on before that time. Well, this book brings it out, explores her history. So that's where I wanted to go with that first book. The second book that
So this is going to be a series, this one?
I wanted it to be a series,
okay,
yes.
Okay.
The second book, which is
Spooky
already
ones.
written, it's the one I want to get down to my editor one of these days,
Okay.
is I want to stick with the night theme.
Mm-hmm.
So the next one is Night of Wine and Ghosts. So it's a takeoff of Days of Wine and Roses, the old movie. So this is Night of Wine and Ghosts. It explores...
Did the ghosts get drunk?
No, the characters do.
Okay.
Laurie and Harry do. This time it explores Harry's background,
Okay.
which I use a little bit of my family history. That there is a little town about 9 miles west of Muscatine called Illinois City. There's like 100 people who live there. It's a dot
There's
in the
an
road.
Illinois City?
Illinois City.
In Iowa?
No, in Illinois, east of Muscatine. I'm sorry,
Oh,
across the river.
Oh, sorry. I get the 4 quad cities all mixed up.
Oh no, yeah, this is about 45 minutes south of the Quad Cities.
Okay, so that makes more sense. So there's Iowa City, which is a big town,
Right.
And then there's Illinois City, which is 100
A little
people.
town, yes.
Gotcha. Okay.
Yeah, I got my directions mixed up. It's
Oh.
east of Muscatine, across the river.
I get directions mixed up all the time. It's all good.
My family, Stephen Brayton, who came in the early 1830s or 40s, was given the first government grant of land that became Illinois City.
Oh.
So he's like
So
the
it's
founder of the
basically
town.
Your hometown.
My hometown. So I've been to the cemetery, and there's all kinds of Braytons out there from him all the way down to my grandpa. And
Is it a popular cemetery?
it is.
Are people dying to get in?
Oh yes, yes.
I'm sorry. That was a dumb joke my husband told me earlier, and I rolled my eyes. So I'm really proud that I was able to use a really... Sorry.
Well,
Okay.
the other one is when you drive by, you ask your friend, hey, do you know how many people are dead in that cemetery?
All of them.
So, but so I used that city in the book.
Okay.
And so what's really cool is let's see, Illinois City is on top of a bluff that if you go down if you go down one road, you go down the bluff and then around the bluff, and there used to be maybe a quarter of a mile from the river, there used to be a house there
Okay.
that was back in the late 1800s, early 1900s, was a stopping point for the steamboat passengers.
Oh, speaking of stopping point for steamboat passengers, let's stop here for just a second, and we'll get right back into what is in that house.
Okay.
Is it spooky house? I don't know. We're back. What's in the house?
Well, it used to be, like I said, a stopping point for steamboat passengers. Just up on the bluff was an old stagecoach trail, and we sort of inherited the house after a
So the house
number of
is still
years.
standing?
No, it used to be there.
Okay.
We had family reunions. We'd spend holidays there. It was back when the road around the bluff was gravel. Most of it still is, and it crossed the creek. And when I mean cross the creek, you drove into the creek and then out of it to continue driving. And so if you had bad rainstorms, that creek would flood and you'd be trapped.
Oh.
So we always had to be watchful of the weather, and we never went there after Labor Day.
Gotcha.
So
Because if you're there until you're
you're
done.
there, yeah. So I used that house as a haunted house because I remember being there as a kid, and I still have pictures of me as a baby running around on a toy car or something like that, and being at that house. And I remember the peeling wallpaper and the black equipment, mechanical equipment in the back, and the wasps hanging around in the back, under the back eaves and stuff like that. And
So it sounds like a perfect
yeah,
spooky house.
I thought I had to use that, and I had created a story just with that house long time before Night Shadows came around. And then when the sequel came up, I said, I think I can use that story now with that house. So it's all based around my family's history of a curse that gets put on the family.
Dun, dun, dun.
Yes. And Harry is throughout this sequel, Harry goes insane.
Oh,
So
poor Harry.
At least for a while.
Okay. Well, I guess there's situations that can make us all go insane.
Yep.
But living in a haunted house, that could really do it.
So from
So-
then on, I want to keep the series just going with. I'll have to figure out what I want to do with future stories.
Gotcha. So is Illinois City actually mentioned in that book then?
I rename it Illinois Junction,
Okay.
but I use real places. One place isn't there anymore. There used to be a store right on the corner of the highway going by. It's now a park. There used to be a telephone. What do I want to say? A telephone company there where the operators used to sit in the and do the old plug-ins and plug-outs.
One ringy dingy, two ringy.
Yeah. And that was my grandmother's job at one point. She worked in the telephone exchange there, so that's no longer there. A couple of the farms that I use, a couple of farms, my dad's old place, that's no longer there. Well, the land is there, the house is no longer there.
Right.
It's a new house now.
Well, that's kind of neat that you're able to use your writing to remember the actual buildings and things like that of a place that, I mean, I'm from Illinois. I did not know that existed. I never knew there was an Illinois City,
Not many people do, and you go right by it. I mean,
Right.
don't blink. It's one of those really don't blink because you're in and out in no time.
Gotcha. Well, do the people of Illinois City know that they're going to be kind of somewhat featured in a book yet?
No, not yet.
Okay.
I was just over there about 2-3 weeks ago. One of my writer friends, she's into dulcimers, and she had a chance to pick up a dulcimer over in Illinois City, and she said, "Do you want to go for a road trip?" And I went, "Sure. I've been over there for a long time." And so, like I
That's
said,
a random thing to find in Illinois
oh
City.
my gosh, yes. No, the house is no longer there. It was taken over by the county, and they had a conservation area down there for a while. It's now the whole area down below the bluff is part of some logging company now. So there's logging trucks down there and cornfield, and I can't even find. We went down there. We drove down there and up. There is when you come around the bluff. There is the cornfield off to the right, and then there's a little trail that goes. The road kind of continues up. You go through an arched gate or a fence or whatever.
Okay.
And it used to be called the Trails End House, and there used to be a sign there, Trails End. That's what it used to be called. The gate or the archway is still there, but I can't find the house. Or I can't find the area where the house sat. It is all changed, overgrown and planted and cut down, and I can't. We looked all over the place. The trail has been graded out so that trucks can get back in there now. And I followed it for a while, and I thought, no, this is too far. And I came back, and I thought, I don't know where it is. The previous time, it was just overgrown with weeds. And I found the foundation below the weeds, but I can't even find that now.
Could you find? Don't they have like county assessors that would have records or something?
Probably.
Like that? Okay.
Probably.
So, with
Some
enough digging if
dusty
you had
tome.
time. Yes. maybe your characters can go look in the county records for some of these things.
There was a picture taken a long time ago. It's now one of those old slides. That mom and dad have, and I thought, and it's taken from, there used to be a little outbuilding or barn or storage building below the house that looks up at the house. And I thought, it's nice and gray, and I thought, this would be a great cover picture for that.
Do you still have it then?
Oh yeah, I think they still have it somewhere.
Okay.
So
well, maybe we'll see that when that book comes out. And that's Night
of Whining Ghosts. That's the tentative title for that. So that's maybe one day soon.
Okay.
That's needs to get to the editor, and then I'll then I'll shop it around.
Alrighty. Well, we've got 2 series and a standalone that might possibly get some more in there. So
Could be.
You got a lot on your plate.
Oh, and I'm still writing where Harry Resnick, who shows up in, like I said, the Mallory books and teams with Lori Campisi. I am writing another series with him. The first one's called Dumb Blonde, Dumblonde. And he pairs with a new partner who is black. And I only mention that because race is part of the story. It's not a racially motivated story, but race is part of it.
Okay.
And it is his getting acclimated to a new partner, not just a black partner, but a new partner. He doesn't work with partners.
He's a lone guy out in the middle, going all by himself. And then
Right. So it brings in Harry's wife's death. They're looking at a series of escort service murders, hooker murders, as well as they get into the partner who is, his last name is Selby. 20 years before, his parents were killed. And so we're investigating that too.
Oh, so there's a bunch of different story arcs going on.
Yes, there's a few things going on here, and they get involved with both. So I'm in the middle of reading that book to the critique book. It's all done. The first draft is all done, and I'll start on rewrites with those pretty soon.
All right. Well, we're looking forward to seeing those on the bookshelves. And you can find his books on Amazon and Stephen Brayton.
.wordpress.com.
.wordpress.com.
Yes.
And we'll have that at the end in the credits too. And your blog is also
Brayton's Book Buzz.
There you go.
.wordpress.com. That's the book review.
Okay.
I do reviews on books that I read. Like I mentioned, the hundreds of books I still have yet to read. If I like one pretty well, I'll just write a quick review on it. And then I have also years ago I signed up for book reviews on sites that they'll send me books. I thought, this is great. They'll send me books to read. This is great. I love to read. The problem is I have to read them, which means if I'm reading those,
you can't read the other ones.
I'm not reading mine. And it just became too much.
Gotcha.
That I just had to back off. And I still...
Because there's only so many hours in a day? Is that what you're saying?
Well, and work and writing. And plus I want to read my own books. And plus, I'm not saying all of them were, but a lot of them were, And I just got tired of reading, And having to put up not trash reviews. I don't trash the book. I just say, this doesn't work for me. This is wrong. You cannot, punctuation, spelling, grammar, they all have to be, if they're glaring mistakes, then readers are going to be turned off.
Right.
Or if a character does not act like a character. I had one cop in one book. I won't mention the name because I don't remember it now. But I'll never forget the chapter. The cops are interviewing this young woman after the murder of her parents and the arson, the burning down of her house. The cops said, "Now, ma'am, we have to ask you this question or we may lose our jobs." No cop ever says that. No cop in the history of policing has ever said that. And I thought, you've got to be kidding me. This is awful. The characters have to act like characters. If you have a cop, it has to act like a cop.
Do your research on the character development, basically?
Oh, yes. I have, for this Dumb Blonde that I'm writing, I am speaking with 2 former cops, one of whom is part of the writers group. She hasn't shown up for a while. I send them chapters, and I say, what do you think? And they'll come back and say, no, they don't do this.
Right.
Or I'll ask them, tell me about SWAT. Tell me about the equipment that they use. Tell me about weapons. Tell me about police procedure. And they've given me so much information and anecdotes that go into the story, and they get big thanks.
They don't get killed off in your books.
They don't get killed off in the books, no.
Gotcha. Well, I guess it just, that doing your homework when you're writing sounds like it's
yes.
very important, and making sure that, did you, there was a mystery person, and I can't remember what little town this was. I'll have to go back and look at it. There's a story of a small town mystery, and the huge mystery was there was somebody that was taking books out of the library and correcting all the misspelling and the punctuation, and doing that and setting it back. And this little small town was just like, who done it? Oh, I think it's so and so. No, it's got to be so and so. Because it. But I'm like, if you're finding that many in the books that are on the,
Oh yeah. The best editors in the world catch, miss stuff. Mm-hmm. You pick up Stephen King, John Grisham, pick one out there. You pick up one of their books, there's going to be a mistake in there. I mean, it happens. Mm-hmm. Nobody's perfect. And editors don't catch everything. And editors sometimes let things slide for some of the more well-known authors. But yeah, you have to do it.
Mm-hmm.
So. Well,
I guess it's So
I still take review requests if they come to me, mm-hmm. and then I'll look at the book. But I don't have anybody send me books, like a company send me books anymore. I just don't have time.
Mm-hmm.
And
mm-hmm.
if somebody sends me a request, I'll look at the. I want a website.
Mm-hmm.
I want the back blurb
mm-hmm.
of the book. That way I can say, okay, this isn't for me. This doesn't interest me, because
mm-hmm.
I'm going to read the books that interest me. So mysteries, thrillers, some sci-fi, if it catches my eye. Nothing.
Was your eye falling?
Yeah. If it catches it. No nonfiction. I'm not into biographies or anything like mm-hmm. that. Historical fiction, I've only taken one. I'm not real thrilled with those. Sometimes those get a little iffy.
Well, if you
for
have
interest ways,
your passions and stuff like that, that's going to be the one that you're going to really pay attention to
right.
the details. That the person who sent you the book, they're sending you a book because they want honest feedback. And
right.
It's better to have honest feedback of someone who actually likes the genre than supposed to be like, oh my goodness, I have to read this book.
Yes. Well, and I will go through the book.
Mm-hmm.
I'll read all of the book.
Mm-hmm.
I may skim a few pages if it starts getting, but I will read it all.
Mm-hmm.
And I decided to go, like you mentioned, with the belt ranks.
Mm-hmm.
In martial arts, we have our belt ranks. Instead of 5 stars or 5 cakes or 5 mushrooms or whatever it is, I decided to do belt ranks. So
mm-hmm.
black belt is perfect. I really enjoyed it. There's no mistakes, or maybe one that I can pass by, but I really enjoyed the book. And then most of them are about blue belt that are enjoyable that I may read again. You get down into green and below, you've got some errors. Characters are not what they should be.
Not developed, or
you've got blatant grammar, punctuation, spelling errors that should have been fixed. You have cell phones in 1980. No, not unless they're about this big.
Uh-huh.
Walkie-talkie size phones. If you got things like that, then that's going to get a lower rank.
Gotcha. So keep it real, keep it within the time frame,
Yeah.
keep it legit, and go from there.
No continuity errors.
Yeah. Well, that's important.
Oh, sure.
Because if you're sending a book for review, you want someone's honest feedback, and that way to help you become a better author. So.
Yep.
Yeah. Well, I want to thank you for coming on to our podcast and telling us a little bit about your books and getting to meet you.
You bet.
So
this has been fun.
Yeah, it has been fun. All right, so you can find his books. This is Stephen Brayton. You can find it at stephenbrayton.wordpress.com.
Yep.
And
check me out on Facebook also.
Mm-hmm.
It's Stephen Brayton, author. On
no,
Facebook.
I looked for you on. I did Stephen Brayton author,
Mm-hmm.
and I had a hard time getting you.
Okay.
So I will have to. Maybe I just misspelled.
Could be.
Yeah, PH.
PH.
Stephen with the PH, guys.
Yes.
Yes, like a doctor. He's a doctor, books man. He's got a PH. Okay. And and then your Brayton's Book Buzz.
.wordpress
.wordpress.com.
is the review book, yes.
Okay. So, and if people want to send you books, they can send you books?
Yes,
or?
they're on that blog site. I have information on how to contact me if you want a book review.
Okay. Well, very good. Well, our batteries are about ready to die, so I think this is where we will cut off for today. Thank you, everybody. Have a great day.